Hey guys, welcome to Home Sweet Homeschool. My name is Ashley and I'm a homeschooling mom to one, and today I want to talk to you about homeschooling a child with ADHD. I have a son who's a 5th grader, and we found out that he had ADHD when he was in 3rd grade. So he had struggled in 1st and 2nd grade just a little, but I don't know, I think it was just hard for me to admit that something was wrong. Because I did fairly well in school. I did what I was supposed to. I followed the rules, all that kind of stuff. And so it was really hard for me to admit that something was going on. And so when I finally was like, okay, I need to help him. And so my husband and I, of course, took him to the doctor, and he does have ADHD. And now I feel bad because I didn't do anything sooner. But the most important thing is I do everything I can now to help him out and to help him be successful. I want him to have confidence when it comes to learning, and that's something that was totally crushed when he was in public school. He honestly felt like he was not a good learner, that he was not very good at math, and I really wanted to change that. And I knew bringing him home, I could find the right curriculum for him so that he would be successful. So today I want to share with you 5 things that we do in our homeschool that really help him out with his ADHD, and they help him feel successful, and they are really helping him learn. So the first thing is because we homeschool, we are able to change and modify curriculum. We can go and find the right curriculum for our kiddos. We do not have to settle. So I did a lot of research, and we did a lot of trying different things until we landed on something that works for him. What has worked for him, and we've been doing this since September, is a unit study-based approach. And if you've watched any of my other videos, you know that we love Gather Around Homeschool. So if you've never heard of that, check out those other videos. But that has totally worked for him. He has really started making those connections, and he really likes that style of learning. So it did take a lot of trying different things out. What I thought was going to work didn't work at all, and he didn't enjoy it. So the great thing about homeschooling is you can change and modify that curriculum when you need to. And if you haven't looked into unit studies for children with ADHD, you may want to try that out because it's really been successful for him. So that's what we're using as far as you can pick the curriculum and make it work for your child. The second tip that I have is we do a lot of narration. Narration is when you're reading something to your child, or your child is listening to something, and then they narrate back what they heard. And that's really good for him, and something I've learned is I can't read a whole page to him and expect him to know what I was talking about. So I do stop after every paragraph, and I get him to tell me what he heard or something he learned from that paragraph. And that has made all the difference in the world. You can do that with any subject too, not just reading, but science, history, anything. Stop and let your kiddos narrate back to you what they just heard. And that'll really give you, an idea of, are they getting this, or were they totally in left field? Sometimes he is, and I have to read it again. But narration has definitely helped him. The third thing I use to help my son with ADHD is to minimize how much he writes. He does not enjoy the physical act of writing. He's very creative. He has tons of ideas. He knows the material, but he has a very hard time taking what's in his head and putting it down on paper. And he gets really frustrated, and then that makes our lessons not enjoyable at all. And just like Julie Bogart says, if there's tears, there's no learning happening. And we don't want that to happen. So I try to minimize how much he's having to write as much as possible. And the way that I do that is a lot of times, if we do copy work, you can type copy work. That doesn't bother me at all. If you type it, if you write it with dry erase markers on the window, that doesn't matter to me. It's just to make it fun and get him to do it. And he likes to type it, so that's good. A lot of times if he has a writing assignment, he will start telling me the story, and I'll write it down. I know at Thanksgiving he came up with this elaborate story about these killer turkeys, and we covered 4 or 5 pages front and back. He just sat and told me the whole story, and I just wrote down what he was telling me. So he's got it in him. He has the ability to write stories and to be creative and to tell things in sequence. But if he had to write that himself, he probably would have had about 3 or 4 sentences and left out all that good stuff. So letting your child dictate to you and you write is another way you can do it. I also let him make PowerPoints or make videos like with Lego figures or action figures to kind of tell me what he knows. It's like, hey, use your Mario figures and tell me what you learned today in our space lesson. Make a video. And sometimes it takes the pressure off of him having to write it down, and he can relay the information to me. So changing up and minimizing the amount of time they have to write sometimes works too. The fourth thing I do is this happens in math, because in our unit study we don't necessarily have to do that. We use math lessons for our living education, and sometimes there are a ton of problems on the page, and he feels defeated the minute he sees it. He's like, oh my gosh, I have to do all those problems. And to a neurotypical person, this probably wouldn't be a problem. Like, I used to love doing math sheets. I'm a nerd. But he can't do this. And so one of the things I like to do is just to take a highlighter, and I mark the problems that I want him to do. To me, I teach him the lesson, and if you can show me in a couple of problems that you understand what's going on, I don't need you to do the whole sheet. I feel that's unnecessary, and we don't need the busy work. So I'll just highlight what I want him to do. And then if I don't feel like it's necessary, like, he knows these Roman numerals. Why are we doing them again? And this copy work wasn't necessary. And then I did the same thing here. I just either put a star. This was a new concept, so we practiced one together, and then he had some there. And then on the back, if I think it's beneficial, I know that with him he has a hard time memorizing his multiplication facts, so he did have to do that. And if there's any review, I usually pick a couple of problems for review too. So that's something you could do. You could select just the problems you want them to do just to show that they understand. And another thing I do is if it's something I don't feel that's necessary, like with our unit study with Gather Around, there's usually an art activity, and he does not enjoy art. That is like, he doesn't mind drawing and creating. He likes to create with clay and things like that. But when you're telling him what to do, he doesn't really enjoy art. So a lot of times I just take that page out. If I don't feel like it's necessary and it's going to really improve his learning, I just take it out, because that's just a page we would have to fight through, and sometimes it's not worth it. The last thing I do for him to help out with his ADHD and feeling successful is I let him choose the order that we do the work. So he knows ahead of time what his assignments are for that day, and he normally chooses cursive and math first because those are his least favorite. So he goes ahead and gets those out of the way, and then I hand him his unit study, and from here he will flip through the pages and he'll decide what he wants to do before lunch, because we usually do a couple of things before lunch and then we take a break because he needs it. We'll take a lunch break, he'll have time to relax, do whatever he wants to, and then we'll come back. And he does pick the order, and as he finishes, we take the page off and we put it to the side so he doesn't see it anymore. And he can see his work dwindling down, and he knows he's accomplished it. So these are just 5 things that I use in our homeschool. They've really worked out, and they're successful for us most days. I'm not going to say every day because we do have struggles, and some days it's just not easy. But these are things that have helped. So if you have any more ideas for how to help children with ADHD in homeschool or just in general, please leave them in the comments below. If you have any questions, let me know. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe.